Issue 1, the High Command.
As a congressional staffer in the 1980s, he helped negotiate the deal between President Reagan and Tip O'Neill to save Social Security. Under President Clinton, he presided over 3 budget surpluses in a row. So for all the talk out there about deficit reduction, making sure our books are balanced, this is the guy who did it. 3 times.
The White House Chief of Staff, Jack Lew, was nominated by the President this week to replace outgoing Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner. Lew is a Democratic veteran of Washington, 30 years of service. Currently, he's President Obama's Chief of Staff. Earlier, Lew served as his budget director. And in that job, he raised Republican hassles. In fact, Jeff Sessions of Alabama, the ranking Republican on the Senate Budget Committee, has already said he'll try to block Mr. Lew's confirmation, notably over a statement Lew made 2 years ago. Lew was then OMB, Office of Management and Budget Director. Quote, "Our budget will get us over the next several years to the point
$5 billion,
where we can look the American people in the eye and say we're not adding to the debt anymore, we're spending money that we have each year." Unquote. Speaking to this, Senator Sessions had this to say, quote, "To look the American people in the eye and make such a statement remains the most direct and important false assertion during my entire
the biggest lie
time
I
in
ever
Washington."
heard.
Unquote. Question, is Jacob Lew a shoo-in for Treasury Secretary? Or does President
Treasury
Obama
Secretary
have a fight on
nominee
his hands,
Jack Lew
I don't know if you'd call him a shoo-in.
lied to Senator Sessions.
Confirmed.
Senator Sessions says it was the biggest lie he ever heard in his whole time in Washington.
Secretary of Defense, John, that is going to be a proxy battle for control of American foreign policy between what you might call the neoconservatives, the Bush II folks, the Three Amigos, McCain, Lieberman, and Lindsey Graham, and what you might call the realist school of
Break in
Brzezinski
3-4
and the others.
Jeff@Jeff.com.
And what Hagel stands for, John, is non-interventionist foreign policy. We don't go to war unless private interests are at stake. We put our own country first, and I think this is really going to be the battle war in the United States Senate in the coming months.
Well, nobody is a shoo-in with the Republican Party that failed to defeat President Obama for re-election, but still seems determined to make him a failed president. But Jacob Lew is as close to a shoo-in as there can be. He's eminently qualified. He's a consummate professional. The only complaint you hear is that he hasn't spent enough time on Wall Street, and for a lot of Democrats, that's actually a positive attribute. So he will be confirmed, and I believe Senator Hagel will also be confirmed, although that's a bigger fight. And
does it help you in
remarks
the
about
Mason hierarchy
Israel,
if you tell
that
the
somehow he
biggest
isn't
lie in
tough
Washington?
enough on Israel. His objection to sanctions was that
when you go in the basement
unilateral.
at
He now
midnight,
supports the current sanctions.
do
He
you
is certainly
rank
not anti-Israel.
in
Those
the
arguments we
Mason
put aside.
hierarchy
He's
for
there
the
to
biggest
cut the
lie?
budget, and he's the man for the moment because he has the appetite to do that.
So this prospect of a point is bypassing Wall Street. Is that good play by Obama?
Well, in the first 4 years of his administration, the first term, his great job was to keep the financial sector from collapsing. So he had someone intimately familiar in Tim Geithner with Wall Street. In the second 4 years, his great job is balancing fiscal issues, and he has in Jack Lew somebody who, as Orr said, knows the budget up and down, tremendous respect, a great negotiator, and keep in mind, Jack Lew is something that people don't understand. He's a liberal fiscal hawk. He's a liberal deficit hawk. He's got very strong views on the safety net and the funding of government. He really does believe in doing what can be done to reduce deficits.
He's coming at the beginning of President Obama's second term. Second terms are rough. They eventually lead into lame duckery. You understand? People jump ship who are working for him. So he needs a strong group to handle the deficiencies that are inherent in a second term. You understand me?
I understand. I think that's right.
That's right. Now, is Lew the guy that can do this for him? Can he protect him and keep him alive and alive in the sense of politically alive, of course, and keep him vibrant as a president?
Look, up to a degree he can do that, but ultimately still much of the major policy is at the desk of the president. When he said that he was the man who was responsible for 3 surpluses under Bill Clinton, let me tell you, Bill Clinton had 3 different programs to reduce the budget deficit and bring about that. So it was a presidential decision. It's not the decision of the budget director. Having said that, he is widely recognized as being an outstanding budget director. He is not widely recognized for understanding the world of finance or knowing the people in the world of finance, but let's hope we don't have another financial crisis, although with the kind of deficits we are running, we are vulnerable to a financial crisis.
But he appears to be a person you can rely on.
Yes, without question. He knows the budget, as people say, inside and out. He's a very solid guy. His word is taken at its face value, and he knows how to deal on the budget issues with the Congress.
There's a little bit more on
That's a lot, too.
He's married, he has 2 kids, he's 57 years of age, he's an Orthodox Jew, he's got a bachelor's degree from Harvard, he's got a JD from Georgetown School of Law, Office of Management and Budget, was indicated earlier,
doing his
in the
best
Clinton administration from 98 to 01. New York University Executive
He's doing
Vice
his
President.
best to drive the federal government into the ground.
Doesn't mean
Keep
president.
operating on it.
Okay.
He had a budget
City
for
Alternative
additional
Investments and
$5
City Global
trillion
Wealth
a
Managing
year.
Director and COO, 2006 to 2009.
On top of the $2 trillion a year deficit we already
He was
have.
there for a year. Office
It
of
would have been a
Management and Budget
$7
Director
trillion
for
a
2 years,
year
2010 to
deficit
2012.
if they
And
would
he's
have
been chief of
passed his
staff for
budget.
this year, I guess, last year.
And
this
he
year,
told
that's about
the
it.
American
Yeah,
people
our own
that he could look
Wikipedia
them
here on
straight in
the
the
set.
eye and say,
I think the audience want, we all want to be
national
introduced.
debt.
Yes, I know why I'm doing
Yes,
this.
yes.
Did I prevail upon any of the time you wanted to say anything about Lou before we go on to
I
Hegel?
just want to
Go ahead.
say,
That put him up there in the
By the
hierarchy.
way, I'm very glad to welcome you.
That put him up
This is
there in the
all
basement hierarchy.
I must commend you on this terrific magazine devoted to a large extent on what sprang from the career of Abraham Lincoln, race history and Obama's
Yeah.
second term. Good luck with the 150th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation. Where are we now?
Thank you.
I commend you.
That's a
It's
fantastic
called the Washington Monthly for those hands out there that'd like to speak further on this. Okay, haggle over Hegel.
He'd be the first person of enlisted rank to serve as Secretary of Defense. One of the few secretaries who've been wounded in war, and the first Vietnam veteran to lead the department.
President Obama announced this week his choice for Secretary of Defense. Former 2-term senator from Nebraska,
You might
Chuck
have a
Hagel.
clip that tells you
Get this.
it shows you telling
Unlike
the truth.
President Obama,
Somebody telling you the
Democrat,
truth.
Hagel is a Republican. Hagel voted for the war in Iraq in 2003. Senator Hagel became a vocal critic of the war's management. Also, Israel backers are incensed by Senator Hagel's words regarding U.S. ally Israel. Hagel said, quote, "The Jewish lobby intimidates a lot of people up here. I'm a United States Senator. I'm not an Israeli Senator," unquote. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham is no fan of Chuck Hagel.
Chuck Hagel, if confirmed to be Secretary of Defense, would be the most antagonistic Secretary of Defense toward the state of Israel in our nation's history. Not only has he said he should directly negotiate with Iran sanctions won't work, but Israel must negotiate with Hamas, a organization, terrorist group that lobs
Hagel
thousands
ain't
of
gonna
rockets in
do
Israel.
much
This
to
is an
Netanyahu.
in-your-face nomination by the
Netanyahu's
president
gonna do
to
whatever he
all of
wants
us
to
who are
anyhow.
supportive of Israel.
Anti-Hagel television ads are now airing.
And while President Obama says all options are on the table for preventing a nuclear Iran, Hagel says military action is not a viable, feasible, responsible option. President Obama,
That's
Secretary
probably right.
of Defense, Chuck Hagel is not a responsible option.
We don't have a
Question, would
military
President Obama
action
have nominated
available.
Hagel if President Obama truly believed that Hagel was anti-Israel?
No, he would not. And
We were able to
what he
barely
did,
support
he puts his
100,000
own
in
country
Afghanistan
first.
and
He hires
150,000
these resolutions the Israeli lobby
in
brings up and
Iraq.
tells him to sign on.
Well, if it
And he
comes
irreverently
down
attacks
to
him
it.
about it. This is a guy, John, who has
Yeah.
fought for his country,
Ah,
led for his
we
country,
have it.
and puts his own country
Military
first. He
action.
does believe in this. Like Nixon,
That's
like Ike,
available.
like Reagan, like Bush 1, he believes in talking to our adversaries and enemies. That includes Cuba, Iran, Hamas, and Hezbollah, And I don't know how we can prevent a war or stop wars unless you talk to both sides of these quarrels.
That's exactly right, and that's what candidate Obama said in 2008. So these two men are very much in sync. I just want to make one point. I'm not the first to say that, but this is really a band of brothers because these four men.
Says that we're not at war with
John Kerry as Secretary of State and Chuck Hagel
as
Secretary of State, if they're all confirmed. They also
are at war with Al Qaeda.
Committee, so they really know each other, and they are.
We may have lost
in a way that I don't think we've
everything except for our Constitution.
This isn't the team of rivals. This is.
They're beginning to sound like good old boys. By the way, speaking about boys, who are the women in this administration?
Well, Hagel might actually have told a modicum of truth.
Hillary is gone, but other than that,
it's saying that we are not at war with the terrorists. We are at war with the political organization that wants to take over the
jobs that
world.
have been announced were
An organization, I will remind you, that has consumed just about every other organization
his policies,
worldwide.
He's proved himself. The statistics are there, and if the Republicans want to argue that the Obama administration isn't diverse enough, have at it.
Did you see the group that were together with Obama? There was TV set there, and the things were all rolled up, and they were concentrating. They were all boys. Out of 14 or 15 people gathered around.
What are the security risks?
Valerie Jarrett's leg.
Don't let them collect all the money.
She was not in there, was she?
Yes, she was.
Are we talking about the same people?
She actually functions as the chief of staff. If anybody questions where the center of power is in the White House, a lot of it is around Valerie Jarrett.
So you think the gripe by what feminist group that
the only reason why we haven't lost the war is because we still follow constitutional protocol.
You have thoughts on this more?
Yeah, well,
the subject is Hagel.
The protocol itself may or may not be the supreme law,
women, but if you insist
we are still following protocol.
I think he's a very well-respected senator. The point about it is,
if
I think
the Constitution goes bankrupt, there won't be that protocol.
Obama's very comfortable with him. I mean, and the major appointments are people he's very comfortable with and knows well personally, and I think that's the kind of person he wants to surround himself for his second term.
Now, you know Netanyahu. This is not privileged information I'm asking from you, but if you were Netanyahu, what conclusions would you draw from the Hagel nomination? Netanyahu might conclude the U.S. is not serious about keeping open the option of a preemptive strike. Do you hear me on that?
I think Netanyahu knows exactly what his problems are in that part of the world, and he will do the best he can to deal with them without going to war. It doesn't mean that he's got an easy hand to play, by the way, but he also is going to have to deal with this administration, which probably is not the most friendly administration to the Israelis that he's had to deal with. But that's his challenge. He's got to find a way to deal with both the critical threats that Israel is facing and an administration that doesn't really believe that there should be force used in this whole process.
There's no regret.
I don't know that anyone thinks force should be used.
There's no apology.
There are people in this city who do think force should be used.
There is the Constitution of the United States of
This is
America.
a great debate to have. Chuck Hagel putting him out there forces Washington to grapple with budget cuts on defense and how to do them right so that we cut but don't run. And he's the perfect foil for that. He will be, I think, elected, appointed, but it's a great debate to have.
He will put the debate right on. I think a good debate is, should we really go to war with Iran and under one circumstances? We really ought to have it all out before that decision is made. And I think the Hagel nomination is the place to do it.
Is there any doubt in your mind that we are practically sworn as a nation to be an ally and with Israel?
He says the debate is over. Should we go to war with Iran?
As a friend,
they're debating over whether or not we should go to war with Iran and go kill them.
Do you
People believe that, but they disagree, John, on the agenda of the Likud, of Netanyahu, and of the Israeli lobby.
So it doesn't mean our alliance with Israel that we are
even the debate over more death and misery
the policies
is not one
programs of Netanyahu. Correct?
I think but that's being true of every Israeli prime minister.
Yeah.
Not every policy of every Israeli prime minister was supported by the United States. That's where the prime minister of Israel better make sure that he knows where the United States is coming from. And I suspect that this president is not going to abandon Israel.
Okay, we're going to get...
clarify what I said. The president and the Obama's administration does not want to use force against Iran, but that option is on the table. It is not
I bet he does very much.
issue 2, gun control, national and state.
He would definitely like
nothing that has tricked the consciousness of the American people. There's nothing that has gone to the heart of the matter more than the visual image people have of little 6-year-old kids riddled, not shot or stray bullets, riddled with bullet holes in their classroom. And the public demands we speak to it.
This week, in the wake of the shooting in Newtown, Connecticut, that left 20 elementary school children and 6 adults massacred, Vice President Joe Biden, at President Obama's request, led a task force to address the broad, sensitive, and inflammatory issue of gun control. Gun groups, like the National Rifle Association, presented views to the Biden task force, which has addressed specific proposals. Notably, reinstate the assault weapons ban that expired in 2004 and close loopholes. Require standardized, universal criminal background checks and mental health background checks at gun shows.
To ban the weapons would drive more of the weapons
underground. What the Obama-Biden team is doing at the federal level was echoed by Governor Cuomo in New York.
They tried it before, and all the weapons went underground.
The state level.
What you want to do is be able to inspect the weapons. You don't want to drive the weapons underground.
This is what you can do. Pass safe, reasonable gun control in the state of New York. And I say to you, forget the extremists. It's simple. No one hunts with an assault rifle. No one needs 10 bullets to kill a deer. End the madness now.
Points in Governor Cuomo's plan. Single standard for background checks for gun licenses.
Yeah, they talk about you don't need an assault rifle to go hunting. Well, yeah, that's fine, Dave. Most times they don't go hunting with the assault rifle.
More, regardless of their manufacturer.
If you drive that federal government into bankruptcy and there's anarchy, there might be some reason to have a good-sized pop gun around.
In violent activity.
I ain't telling you can't have the gun. I'm telling you that we need to inspect the gun every year.
Regular reviews of gun owners to determine fitness to own a firearm.
Do you think Governor Cuomo is, I'd say this respectfully, waking up in the middle of the night hearing tales of the chief? You think this is a...
You drive that federal government into bankruptcy and Al-Qaeda takes over, we're going to want some pop guns around.
Thinking someday he might be president. It's just beyond my imagination, John. But I'll make the adjustment if I have to just answer your question. Yes, he does think about it.
I'm not saying it's a political. What did you think of what he said?
Listen, he's going to get this through. He's going to get a big change in gun control through New York State. He's got the capability to do it. He knows how to handle his legislative bodies. So I think he's going to get this through. And it will set an example for the rest of the country, which in my judgment is long overdue.
He's already possibly answered the question, Paul, but do you think this is going to become normative?
If he was smart,
approach of Governor Cuomo,
if the governor of New York was intelligent,
would be normative for the other 49 states?
He would push
for the Democrats.
For inspection of the weapons.
Colorado, it's happening in
Illinois,
a ban. They're tightening up gun control. Why do you think this Democrat?
He would use all of his political clout and spend it for inspecting the weapons instead of banning the weapons.
I know a lot's transpired. It would not get through, and
it would be much more interaction with the gun owner and the government than making the gun owner mad. And the gun owner going down to Mexico to buy an AR-15 and bringing it back.
Sales of these Bushmaster things, these Armalite rifles, have doubled in the last month. This whole campaign that turned around and focused on the whole gun has boosted gun sales.
That's such a facetious argument. What you're basically saying, they're all out there, so therefore we can't stop it going forward.
He's going to spend all his political clout on banning the weapons, which has already been done.
So they can only do something for
They didn't do anything except for drive the weapons manufacturers underground to sell their stuff.
As you pointed out in the setup, ban the sale of large magazines. If you're a sportsman, you do not need 10 shots to kill a deer. You're a lousy shot.
It ain't about killing a deer. It's about killing a deer.
Go ahead, Paul. Quickly, another point to make. Criminologists will point out that it is new guns that criminals like. Criminals don't like guns stored in people's houses. Yeah, some of those wind up in gun crime. Most guns,
that's the entire thing. The constitutional amendments about bearing arms to kill people, not killing theirs.
These Armalite rifles are cops and veterans.
That's the reason why we have the Constitutional Amendment.
Videos in all of these movies, they see these
the right to bear arms in case the federal government fails. We are armed and ready.
Or any money from Hollywood who glamorizes these weapons in movie after movie after movie. What do you think builds the audience for these guns?
This point is extremely well taken, and one that I've developed on previous shows. Portrait aggression plays a real role in the psyche of younger people.
And
older people, too. It doesn't justify it. And and we should watch our motion pictures and our television and our and other entertainment operations of the all the more reason why we should control the distribution of guns, the sale of guns, and the kind of guns that people can buy. Well stated, Mo. Issue 3, Assad's call to arms.
Syria's president, Bashar al-Assad, issued a defiant call this past Sunday for a quote-unquote total national mobilization to defeat Syrian nationals rebelling against him. The conflict is nearly 2 years old and is estimated to have killed more than 60,000 people. Assad's speech hammered home how far out of reach a political answer is to the civil war now raging. The UN, by the way, is describing the hostilities as a civil war. Assad was addressing an audience of loyalists in the Opera House in central Damascus. The Syrian leader stressed the importance of total mobilization. Quote, Syria will only exit this calamity by converting this energy into a total national mobilization to save the country from the clutches of a crisis that has no precedent in this region, unquote. The address marked President Assad's first speech to the nation in more than 6 months. He denies that there was a popular uprising against his family's rule. Now, in its 42nd year, he called the conflict an insurgency comprised of a, quote, handful of Syrians and many foreigners, terrorists holding the views of Al-Qaeda. They call themselves jihadists and are running terrorist operations here, and we are fighting them, unquote. Assad also called for a national dialogue that would include, quote, all elements of Syrian society, unquote. Rebels have taken over significant territory, but to date have not been able to break Assad's regime's grip on most of the main cities.
Question. The UN says that the current conflict in Syria is a civil war. What follows from that?
The United States has gone to the Security Council and we've been blocked by the Russians and the Chinese, so we have no authorization there. We have no NATO authorization as of now. Frankly, John, the Americans and the Israelis and the others are getting cold feet on the idea of Assad going down because the people who are really rising in this revolution are jihadists who are coming in from all over the world now into Syria. And also, Syria, the government there has done a better job than people expected. People thought it was going to be gone, and they've done a better job of holding the cities and maintaining it.
What do you think of that? Well, I tell you, I don't think anybody really has a clear idea of what's going on the ground. I just was with one of the journalists who just came back from Syria, and he says that that whole country is in turmoil, and there are all kinds of different groups. I agree. The existing government has a certain amount of control over arms and military force in that part of the world, but it's eroding at a very rapid rate, and there's going to be chaos. It seems to me what we have to find out a way is to deal with the chaos and to find somebody that we can support who will succeed Assad, because he has been a disaster for that region for a long time.
You know the chemical weapon worry. It was earlier connected to Assad. The bigger chemical weapon worry is that if the rebels take over that government, they will have the possible usage of chemical weapons if an uprising arises against them. You follow me?
That is always possible.
Is that a more likely scenario? Scenario 2. What am I trying to say? Is it a more justification for worry, number 2, as opposed to number 1?
Well, the issue is if we're going to stand by and do nothing, okay, the chances are that a rebel group will take over. And who knows what they will do?
Who wants them to have?
We don't want them to have chemical. We don't want Assad to have chemical weapons. And the whole world has now warned Assad against the development and the use of chemical weapons. And if he does use it, he'll be over.
But is there now a lessening of the worry that Assad may use the chemical weapons? Now shifting in that way.
I think you never know what Assad is going to do. But to answer your original question, does the fact that the UN has said is a civil war justify it? What will if we want to justify it, we'll justify it. We'll find alliances to make it happen. We don't have a handle on how to work there.
All the time. Sorry. Bye.
An apology. Not a freaking apology.
Funding provided in part by American Petroleum Institute.
What's up with the future of natural gas? Well, just look down. Deep underground. That's where America's safely recovering more than a century's worth of clean natural gas. Plentiful, secure, and all-American. Energy from shale. Log on to learn more.
We believe that if love is a chemical reaction, chemistry has a good chance to make the world a more harmonious place. Chemistry works so that bandages end up loving the water. Families are less afraid of energy bills. And even cars and clean air get along better. That's why we don't just make chemicals, we create chemistry. BASF, the chemical company.
Commentary with JeffandJess.com.